over time. I think a lot of careers are like 5, 10 years, and then that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And so a few will hang on. I've been stunned I'm around this long.
Welcome back to Direct Edition, a podcast about nothing and everything. I am your host, Dave. It's fall hoodie weather, and I'm in full form right now. And with fall comes spooky month, kids and adults and senior citizens. And I'm bringing you an interview today with one of the horror masters of comics and illustration, Kelley Jones. Kelley Jones is an artist that I started looking at a very, young age, because during the 90s, he was doing the Batman Knightfall covers. So it all was, the pinnacle of that was the breaking of Batman's back, and that is Kelley Jones's image. That cover is iconic, to say the least. And shortly after that, probably in my late teens, maybe 17 or 18, my friend Larry handed me 3 books because he knew I was such a Batman fan. And they were the Batman Dracula 3-part miniseries from Elseworlds: Red Rain, Crimson Mist, and Bloodstorm. And it changed me. It is definitely a milestone in my comics reading life that I can look back at, that changed me, because the art was just so amazing and the story was great, and they were such enjoyable books, and they were Batman in, obviously Elseworlds, but he's battling Dracula and then becoming the Lord of the Vampires himself. And so it did something to me, and to this day I'm still absolutely in love with Kelley Jones's artwork. So he's been doing this Batman Dracula He's been doing this Dracula book with Matt Wagner. They are currently kickstarting their 3rd volume, The Count, and it is beautifully written by Matt Wagner and amazingly drawn by Kelley. So in preparation for my interview with the two of them, I asked if I could have an hour with Kelley just to do a kind of career overview with him. And what I got was just such a friendly chat. I mean, Kelley is known for being a very nice, talkative and somebody you can talk to person. And this interview is just proof positive of that. We talk about Bernie Wrightson. We talk about horror influences. We talk about movies, original artwork. It's basically scratching the surface. But the reason why I wanted to just kind of have this chat with him instead of do like a real kind of career dive, he has done a 5-hour combined interview with Uncle Jerk on his YouTube channel, which is an amazing, amazing deep dive into Kelley's backstory and career. So I thought we would just have some more kind of fan to fan chat, because Kelley Jones is a fan first and foremost, as he'll tell you right now. If you are looking to back the Kickstarter, I can tell you these Dracula books have been absolutely amazing. The link is in the description below. And then yesterday on my other YouTube channel, West Coast Avengers, I talked to Matt and Kelley about Dracula. So 2 different interviews, 1 channel per interview. But you're here for Kelley Jones. So why don't we get to that right now? Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello, my friends. Today, I have a very special guest, somebody whose artwork I've been looking at since I was a young lad reading comics. He has left his mark on so many characters: Deadman, Sandman, Swamp Thing, Batman. But that's changing, because now we know him from these 2 amazing Dracula books he's done with Matt Wagner. And I'm talking about a master of horror, Kelley Jones. Kelley, how are you?
Thank you. Doing really good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny to think that, like, I think about some of these artists that I looked at as a young person reading comics for the first time, and you're still flying high. Like, you're these new Dracula books have, like, you're better than you were. Well, I don't know how that works.
I appreciate that. And look, I'm a fan too. And you're right. I've seen, and it's not a knock on people. It's hard to do this. And as you get older, other concerns, and who knows what goes on in your head. But for me, what always has stuck with me from early on was a quote from, of all people, from Joe DiMaggio.
Eh.
And he had said, he was asked once in a game that didn't matter and they were way behind, and he busted his ass to make a catch that, who cares? You're down 9-0, right?
Sure.
And he was asked by one of his teammates, why did you do that? And he says, because someone might have traveled hundreds of miles, bought a ticket, and this is the only time they'll ever see me.
It's a great way to look at it.
And that's how I looked at it. This might be the only book someone ever sees, you know?
And I like that you said it's not a knock, because, you know, in art in general, we can pull that out to all types of art, whether it's music, if it's acting, it's writing.
Yeah.
There's still a physical and a mental toll that it takes on the body, even if you're tip top shape in both of those things. And naturally, we have seen people that have their art has suffered from not taking care of themselves with age. But then on the flip side, you know, I think about music a lot. I think about a band like, you know, I'm a big Pearl Jam fan.
Yeah.
Those guys sound better live now than they did at some points 25 years ago.
Right.
And it's like sometimes it's an upward trajectory. You try to do your thing.
Well, yeah.
And you get better.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate that, because I do put that effort in. But like I said, I know I'm sending this stuff off to show Matt.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I never take it for granted. I don't think anyone knows my career. So I always go into it thinking, you know, you earn it that way. On the other hand, I also am not nuts and spend 3 days on a page, because that's insane too, or you won't ever get anything done. It has to be within the frame of making a monthly or a commercially viable comic. And that's comic books. That is comic books. Comics aren't, a guy who takes a week to do a page is useless. Mm-hmm. It should be great. But to do something that people regard well in a timely manner. I mean, crowdfunding, as with anything, you're asking people to put their money down and then be patient. So if there's a thing I have right up there with people really liking what I'm doing, is it's on time. Right. And I think I told Matt, I said, we're going to be 3 for 3 on this. And that just doesn't happen in crowdfunding. No, so you build a reputation of a good book, and people trust you're going to be on time.
And you both, as creators, have good reputations all around. So, I mean, it's not surprising to me that people that have career-long good reputations continue to do so as they keep creating.
When I did Batman monthly, that was 3 years, and I never missed a deadline, and they weren't used to that. But now a lot of people were keeping their deadlines. Now a guy can do 2 issues and they have to have a fill-in, or 3 issues, and you can see the trail off. But there was no margin for error under the editorial, and rightfully so. That's if they hire you to do it. So I had my training. That 3 years, I learned a lot on not just keeping time, but doing something worth it. And also committing to a large project like this, with Matt was easy, because Matt's not a flake. Right. He's very, very productive. So
he's a taskmaster.
Yes, he is. And you need that. You need that. So the both of us are kind of the same way. And it's not like he's ever waiting for something. And it's not like I'm ever waiting from him. I mean, bang, there it is.
Yeah, you read that script. I mean, I think you were talking about the script for book 3 when we talked last time, when book 2 was being kickstarted. Something you just said, it makes me think, because I don't know if I realized it when I was young and Knightfall was coming out, but like between you and Sam Kieth, you did almost every cover of those first 15 issues of Knightfall. Yeah. How and that was between all the books, wasn't that bi-weekly?
Oh God, it was. I just did it. They had called me said they wanted to contact Sam, and they didn't know how to contact him. He was at Marvel, so I put him in touch with Sam, because Sam and I have known each other since we were kids.
Yeah.
So they got a hold of him, and that was it. And I was off doing my own thing. I was uh, my other Batman stuff for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was Elseworlds and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I had no connection to the office with this. And then they get a hold of me saying, sometime later, saying, that they were having difficulty finding Sam, or he was just getting later and later. And so Sam called and says, "Look, I'm freezing up on this, and I'm having a hard time with it. I'm not grasping it. Mm-hmm. So can you help me out on this?" And I did. I spoke to him. I said, "But okay." Anyway, he called because I really couldn't fit it in. And so the office gets a hold of me and says, "Okay, you really pushed and recommended and whatever. We're out of time. You have to come in and do." And I thought it would be one or two of them. And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." So I came in and I did one or two of them, and I think one. And then I did another one because they were pretty late.
Yeah.
And they liked them. And I went back to what I was doing. They said, "Hey, can you get us ahead and do just another one or two?" And I went, "All right." I stopped what I was doing, and they didn't really have a lot of direction because they were so busy doing it. So I was left to my own devices. They just said, "So and so's in it," or "Have Batman be scary." Well, okay. And then what happened was they came out and they really hit. I mean, with fans, it really hit.
Oh yeah.
So at that point, they just started giving them to me. And since this was like a big time, all the writers were having to work together. It was very hard for them to have a finished script or a story finished to tell me what was going on. So all they could really do, those early ones, was just say, "So-and-so is in it," or "This is kind of what's happening," or "Can you make something really violent?" That kind of stuff. So as dreadful as the deadlines were, the freedom was terrific. And it was lightning in a bottle. I, though, still didn't know what was going on in Knightfall and didn't really care because I was buried under my own deadlines for, I think it was Bloodstorm or one of those things I was doing.
Yeah.
And I had those deadlines to meet. But it was one of those things where they got a hold of me after the first few and said, you got to be on these. And Sam bailed. So I got both. So I was doing detective and Batman, and it was a lot of work. Luckily, for the most part, I'm usually pretty tough on myself. I think they came out fine, considering, and they seemed to catch something in a bottle. I will say that. I didn't know who Bane was. I didn't really care. And they just said, "Here's a picture. He's a big guy. Do him the way you would do him." Yeah. And I went, okay. And I wasn't really. It's one of those things I thought, well, if it's a big thing, where's the Joker? Where's the, but it was this new guy I didn't know. Yeah. And so it was just, though I had nothing to do with the invention of Bane, and I've only drew Bane like about a handful of times, but I got identified with Bane because of course, the fact they said, just make him up. Just do it like you did it,
Well, between you and Glenn Fabry doing, he does the first two covers that Bane ever appears, the first book. And you shaped him into this guy that nobody in the interiors could even keep up with how stylistic both of you guys created him as.
Yeah. For me, it was like all I knew. I was working with Doug Manchin. He was working on it. And I said, so this guy is, when they were telling me in advance, well, he's going to do all this awful stuff. I said, not the Joker, I was thinking, you're going to do it. And I said, well, he's got to be something awful.
Yes.
Like monstrous. For me to, at least on a cover, he's got to be really a dreadful character. And when they said he's like a Mexican wrestler, I was going, none of this was, I wasn't reading the stories though, because I was doing my thing. So I didn't know that they were actually crafting this very well. I was off in my own world. I go, Mexican wrestler breaks Batman's back. Oh, come on. And so, but that helped me. because of that, I felt, well, I have to make him legitimately, justifiably awful
Mm-hmm.
and believable to do that, and
Yeah.
it worked.
So the famous cover where he's breaking his
Yeah,
back. I mean, no matter who you ask, that's in the top 5 most iconic covers of that era. Like,
yeah,
there's,
I would, yeah. Yeah.
when you initially handed that in, was there any pause from DC to
I
like,
they,
oh,
be to be honest, when they said he's getting his back broken, I said that's pretty okay, that. And they said all they asked for was it was shot from the front,
okay,
like you see it from the front. Well, that was really the first direction I ever got, because the way I would have done it I had a different thing in mind, which would never have passed. Now that I think of it, it would have never made it. So that one restriction did get it through, and it was the only time they asked me for some kind of a sketch before. Every other
okay,
time they literally would tell me on a Monday what a cover that they needed on a Wednesday, meaning I had that day to do it, and mail it on because in those days no scans.
yeah, it's
I had
just
to
FedEx.
FedEx it Tuesday, so it would be there Wednesday. So there was no editorial or art direction on these. That was the
Right.
only time they said, "Can you just send a sketch?" And um, so I sent them a fax, uh, and I actually had to go buy a fax machine because I never wanted anyone to see what I was doing. So I
Yeah.
bought one and I sent it, and I made it loose enough to where there was a little freedom still to do what I wanted, and they said yes, that'll do.
Wow.
And I pushed it a little further when I penciled it and inked it. I pushed it a little further, but enough. I think the thing that made it really gruesome was I did not do a line doing a demarcation between his back and Bane's leg,
And the knee.
so
Yeah.
it looked like it was bending it. Yeah, and it just worked. That one worked. Now that was an okay cover to me when I was done. I thought other ones were more, but boy, that's why I need an editor, because sometimes
Yeah.
I can't tell, and nobody knows anything. That was one of the few times they knew this is going to be a big moment, and they paid off. The books, the interiors paid off, and I think
Yeah.
it shocked the hell out of a lot of people.
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean,
Mind
I
you,
like,
I'm doing Vampire Batman, and I'm rendering bodies and tearing off heads, and so it
yeah.
was fairly tame, But
Well,
for them, that was pretty far.
I'd like to think in an alternate reality, you did the interiors to that book too.
You
Like
know,
there's a Kelley Jones version of that issue.
if it would have been, they probably would have said we can't publish it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, because I would always, to be honest with you, I would always go, what is one step further than I think
Mm-hmm.
they could do, and then I would take another one past that and just see. And I knew that since I was not a traditional superhero artist, I would have to push my tropes rather than superhero tropes.
Of course.
You know,
And we got lucky. Look, I mean, my friend gave me the original hardcovers for
yeah,
Red Rain,
yeah,
Crimson Mist, and Bloodstorm when I was, I don't know, probably 5 years after they came out. I'd never seen it before.
yeah.
And to me, that's one of the greatest Batman stories because you let it rip. Like Doug lined you up and you just let it rip.
Well, you have to, when you're getting a different subject like that. It's an Elseworld, certainly, but when you're getting something where you're drastically doing something to Batman, and it's extremely gothic in its, I don't want to say visual, but it's storytelling. Like nothing ends well. The good objectives are met, but nothing ends well, and that's a gothic. So I knew at that point, um, and nobody was saying no. Nobody would say, I would go, well, they're not going to go for me doing this and him
Yeah.
cutting off a head or all these horrible things that go on. And they'll say no, and then I'll know my limits. I'll know what they're, and nobody said no. I remember being smart enough not to ask too.
Sure.
If they're not saying, then I'm not doing it.
Don't push your luck with it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things Denny had said to me after the fact, because they had all done extremely well. It was never designed as a trilogy. It was a one and done.
Yeah.
And it would do really well. And then the second one did better than the first one. And so then they said, okay. And then at that point, you have to do another one. But, you know, the only thing I ever heard Denny say, because he was in the world of traditional Batman, was he says, just be glad there's a lot of sick people out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he was being funny, but he was right.
Yeah.
I was glad I was one of them, you know?
Yeah. Well, he's also a guy that pushed boundaries so early on in his career.
Absolutely. And he was always he's the one who hired me for the monthly book.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't Doug and everyone got together and decided. He just, out of his own head, he said, this is what I want. After all the tied together books, he said he wanted it kind of separate. And he thought I was doing kind of a hip 40s style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because those are very dark and pretty brutal and
gothic.
And I had once told him I'd read a lot of that stuff. He was surprised I'd read a lot of Golden Age stuff. I was familiar with it. So I think that, and he knew we weren't taking the same territory and it wasn't going to look like what he and Neil did or anything like that. And he, again, for those 3 years, he just left me to my own devices. He never said change it. That's the longest stretch I've had where someone didn't say change something.
Wow. It's impressive because like a testament to your time on Batman over the years is artist editions and, reprints and stuff like that. I mean, that's the mark more than anything else is
I've been
seeing the book live on.
Look, I'm not stupid. I realized that what I was doing was way outside the norm. And I never had a problem with someone saying, my God, this is terrible. You're ruining it. I gotcha. I understood that, but this is what I do. And I realized, it was one of the rare times where you get to be selfish, and it made me think, well, this is the only time I'm going to get this shot. I'm going to do what I do. And, they can always say, that's good. That's enough, Kelley, or whatever. Yeah. But I knew that it would have a better chance of standing the test of time if it looked like what I wanted rather than follow a trend or what was going on then. Because I'll have a lot of people say, well, Image was the thing and all that stuff. And then there was this,
Yeah.
But I knew a lot of artists at that time and now in particular, a lot of them who were young, who have now become accomplished, all saying that was the book that let them know, hey, I can do what I want to do, or I can go into a darker, not so much attitudinally, but visually darker and mess with things and change things around. And that did work for me. I mean, all the time, DC, right now they're planning on releasing a lot of this stuff in higher formats and stuff like that. And after 30 years, I'm shocked. That's great, but they have told me they don't really. It was one of the nicest compliments was offhand, and they said, we don't see your stuff as nostalgia because it could come out now.
No, yeah, correct.
And I went, wow, that's nice. That is nice. I don't mind nostalgia. I'm sick with it, but but that was a nice thing to say.
I mean, it's not hyperbole to say that, something like the Batman Dracula specifically paved the way for a lot of what came after. Obviously we got to, you look at Frank Miller behind you, but you look at Absolute Batman now. I don't know if you've been checking it out, but they're in a body horror storyline right now.
Well, I'm sure they looked at what we were doing because it was those things. The monthly and the Draculas were. I made a point. I've always felt that since you have to go into anything where you're going to present what you do and think, well, what is everyone else doing, and then try not follow that, but do your own thing and take your chances. And so mine was, well, everybody's doing realism and everyone's doing that. How about I go for interesting?
Mm-hmm. And I like that.
Yeah, and just go for interesting and see what happens. So it would be the cape and his anatomy and his ears and all that stuff. And it was something I did not to say, this is how I draw and whatever, but it was, this is how the people of Gotham and his adversaries see him.
That's great.
it's more, so there's a subtle little, I don't want to say abstraction, but it's surreal that
Yeah.
he's fear. And so he shouldn't be like Captain America with a cape. He should be like from hell.
Yeah. Or the shadow that you think that moves in the corner.
Yes. And I always felt, though you have to show it, I always used to tell Doug, I said, because he asked me once why I did this. And I said, because he's the guy who, for 99.9% of people he comes across, he just says, stop it. And they stop it. He doesn't have to hit them.
Mm-hmm.
The crazies you have to hit because they don't, they're crazy. Right. And he liked that. And I said, so from whenever I show him, I don't waste a panel. So whenever you see him, he's scary. Even when he's talking to Gordon.
Yeah.
He stays in character. And that was an objective that I thought that one would keep me fresh every time. I'd have to keep thinking. And I didn't really want to repeat myself too much. But that's almost impossible if you're doing it. But yeah. But it gave me an angle,
And I also feel like, just from memory, and I don't know if this was a conscious decision. I imagine it is in a way, but it almost seems like you never drew him upright. He was always kind of like at a curve and looming, and it sticks with you. That completely stuck with me.
Because to me, he was always threatening.
Yeah.
And he was always ready. And I always saw him as a predator. Mm-hmm. So like they're leaning into it,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people wouldn't understand that, but I made a point not to explain it anyway. There would be no explanation. He's just, this is how he is. Because I figured the people before me and the people after me are going to do it the way that's acceptable. Yeah. I knew that, and in my head, I used to think, well, 50 years from now, people who know, they'll think, okay, good or bad, they'll know those years. And it's 30 years later, and they know those years.
Yes, we do. So going back into inspiration, like a big part of my podcast and my interviews, I like exploring what came before and what inspired. And with your work, obviously, we trace it. We go back and Bernie, Bernie Wrightson. But even before that, because you talked about the Golden Age stuff, did you read a lot of Graham Ingels stuff when you were younger?
No, I didn't really know Graham Ingels until a friend of mine who managed a comic book store had pointed out to me. And this is years and years and years ago. I wasn't even drawing comics then. What my big influences were, oddly enough, was I loved what I saw with Wrightson. I loved what I saw with Wally Wood. A lot of those guys, that kind of thing. Mike Plug, Gene Colan, those guys. But my big influences were film, because there was I never thought I would do comics, so I watched movies all the time. And I was lucky that my dad was really into all different kinds of stuff and didn't mind if I watched horror films and didn't care. So I went to a lot of theaters that would play older things. I took film courses. And so never that I wanted to make films, but I realized once I decided I might want to try my hand at comics, they taught storytelling.
Yeah.
They taught how to frame something, but it was cinema. It wasn't comics. So my stuff is probably a sideways awkward for that, because I always apologize to Matt, because I said, I'm not thinking Alex Toth storytelling. I'm thinking Stanley Kubrick storytelling. And I'm thinking what John Carpenter does, or what Terrence Fisher does. I was looking at those people and going, man, I really like how that impacted me, that whole thing. And they would always, yes, you have to know technical stuff. For comic book art, as soon as I started hearing about rules, I would go like this. I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. And I wanted the impact and the emotion. I wanted different objectives rather than A, B, C equals D. I wanted D be Z, and people go, what the hell? But the impact of Z would like, wow. And I knew there was enough to connect it, but I knew it would give me an angle to develop a style.
Yeah.
And I needed something rather than look at somebody else. I mean, I do see really terrific artists, and they will do like how to draw or how to do or whatever. And I think, yeah, if I was never going to draw, that would be fun to watch. But if I was going to be an artist, that's the last thing I would do. You know, figure it out on your own. It's like Werner Herzog says, get a little camera and go figure it out.
Yeah. And
you will make something different.
And he is the existence of the word different when it comes to the filmmaking.
Well, all of my favorites were. And I'm not avant-garde. I'm a genre guy. I love regular. Yeah. I love regular stuff. But I became fascinated by the fact that I had to work to understand a Lynch or a Herzog. Right. I had to work to get to, not like they didn't make sense. They made perfect sense, but it was like personally telling their story. Kubrick, I adored before I even thought of any of this, because I never forgot his imagery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never forgot it. And people could complain, or they could say this or whatever. And I go, yeah, but I don't remember the stuff you guys like. I remember that. I remember these images. It stays with me when I go back. It has a different meaning. They grow. And I realized that's not because the guy was trying to do some encyclopedic thing. He was just doing what was coming from inside and developing those ideas. And I figured, well, I could try doing that.
Yeah, he was creating what he wanted to see on screen and what he wanted to give the experience. I mean, instantly when you say Kubrick, I think about how The Shining is a movie that the imagery of it lives in my head at different, paces and times, and it's I can't ever get it.
Pop culture.
Yeah.
And you can say that really about anything he's done. It's stayed. And I had to, it isn't like and people will say, well, I'm not controlling these things. It's not all of those people from start to finish. That was them. For me, I have an editor to answer to, so I would work it where I could.
Yeah.
And if I could do enough that made them understand what was going on, and then I would do my own thing. But I was very fortunate in the success of that. And, I'm out in California. They were all in New York. So I had no contact with these. It isn't like now.
Right.
And I had no contact. I really didn't, because I was on a monthly, you don't go to shows or you'll lose your deadline. So I didn't see anybody. I'd occasionally talk to Denny maybe once a month. And it would just be a, hey, how are you? And so I was left alone for a long periods of time. And I don't need reaction. I don't need, I'm not an insecure guy. If they fired me tomorrow, I always had that. If they could fire me tomorrow, I'll do something else. Because my biggest fear in life was being bored. And now I wasn't bored doing this. And like I said, I didn't feel like I needed to, everybody else I looked at was doing it the way you're supposed to do it. And good for them. I mean, it worked. For them, it worked. But they were trained in it. I wasn't. Everything I did was self-taught.
And that's your style. That means your style is you. Your influences, like we talk about, is the things that you're taking in. But like you said, you're just doing it the way you want to, and you like what you like. Yeah. I mean,
well, I'm not, I mean, I don't go into it saying, well, if nobody likes it, that's okay. I hope they do.
Sure.
But my thing is, I want to show them something that I think is interesting. Or I want, and for me every day, those little things would come. I knew, it's like the thing where I knew the joke and I knew the punchline, and I realized no one else knew the joke or the punchline. So that, as with when I did Batman, I always assumed the bat signal was a warning he was coming out. It wasn't, hey, come help us, because who would know that? We wouldn't know that. I always figured everybody thought in Gotham that he was a villain because he doesn't announce what he does, and if he's fighting the Joker or the Penguin or someone, it's a turf war. It's not, I'm stopping them from doing something bad.
Right, because they don't know. People
No.
don't know that.
And he must be the worst of the worst because he's the only one who never did time in Arkham. And I was thinking those things when doing it. So that at that point, I remember saying that once at a BAT meeting, and they all looked at me like I was nuts, but I always felt there was something there. I always felt, but it gave me an angle. And like I said, a lot of artists that I won't name, but they're very big, have all come to me and said, that book was the one that made me think I could do this, or that what you're doing. And they're 10 times more gifted than I am. It's just the power of an idea, and it's the power of ideas. And that's what I'm always attracted to. So my ideas overrode whatever technical skills I had or didn't have. I was very fortunate that on a couple of occasions, Neil Adams would take me aside and tell me these things and say,
wow.
I know I was from the 70s, but you were of your time. And
sure.
he would tell other luminaries this. And it does take you aback. I mean, like I said, I'm much more a fan than a pro. And I'm uncomfortable around Neil because I'm like, well, that's Neil,
right. He created modern Batman.
There, and I would nod my head, and then I'd go vomit. So, but it meant the ideas were, he got it. I mean, he could tell. He's a draftsman par excellence, and he could see that I made it up as I went. But he loved the ideas.
And I think what you touched upon too is it's something this podcast is built around is fandom. Fandom created comics. Fandom brought comics up, lifted it, created San Diego Comic-Con. And you're saying it. You're saying, I'm a fan. Why wouldn't I want to create like this? Why wouldn't I want this?
Look, if there's a thing that's good about doing this professionally, is the fan part of me gets to go just talk to these guys, go talk to people. I don't have to, I can just go and talk to them. If there's a pleasure to it, it's that. But I'm a fan 10 times more than a professional. I'm still much more of a fan.
Oh yeah, no, everything behind you screams fan. It doesn't scream, totally.
I don't need that label on me. Like I'm separate or and I don't mean that humbly. It's like, no, I'm totally doing this still as a fan. It's like high school and they're publishing it,
I mean, how do you think I feel? I'm just, I call myself just a schmuck with a mic, and I get to talk to all these people that I'm a fan of.
And it doesn't go away. I mean, my real life that I live outside of comics, nobody's into comics. They're all civilians around me. Right. So when they hear I do what I do, it's either, oh, that's interesting, or like, well, that's kind of silly. It's never, people make them, or, and I like that because you bring a lot of energy back, and it makes you feel like, what I love, I genuinely do love. I never apologize for it.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's in her career. She's fairly high up in her world, and it's very, very technical stuff. But the good thing about her world is, oddly enough, there's far more geeks and nerds in her world. So when they say, well, what does your husband do? Instantly she goes, I found that's better than a calling card, And they say, can he sign or can he do? Because she's in when you're in technologies and stuff.
Those are the biggest nerds.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. And some people, it shocks me because they're fairly highly placed. And man, when they let it out, it's comforting, I'm like, okay, they're there. Yeah, they are,
I did want to ask about just Sacramento in general and growing up there, but getting into your world. I mean, something magical there. You, Sam Kieth, Tim Vigil, Ron Lim, John Wayshak. I know there's others. Bud Plant is out there. What is it? And
I think there was this wonderful thing going on, and I think what it is one, we're not close to anything,
right?
And Bud had, at least for me, Bud Plant was silent partner for a great comic book chain, Comics and Comics.
Mm-hmm.
So Bud's taste kind of dictated it. So you didn't just get what was Marvel or DC would make. You get everything. You get Europe.
Yeah.
You'd get independent. You'd get underground. You'd get the posters and I mean,
Oh,
my
the
room's
books,
filled
the
with
catalogs.
Yes. And so when you went to the comic book store, that's what you found it at a Comics and Comics. And I think that influenced us all because it was a lot of art was there too.
Yeah.
They had a lot of art. And that's the first time I ever saw original art, was pages from Jeff Jones's Idol and Barry Smith's Conan and Swamp Thing by Wrightson were just up on the wall.
Yeah.
You know, and they would do buying trips, go back east. And I got to know all those guys. Now I was a kid. So I think that had a lot to do with it. I think Sacramento's isolated. I think Sacramento had a very good thing in the 70s and 80s of all television's homogenized now, and no one even watches television. But in those days, they had great UHF stations that would just run incredibly crazy stuff all the time. And you'd see all the horror films uncut. They didn't even cut a Hammer film.
Because there was no censors on the UHF stuff.
They were too lazy. It wasn't worth their time. So you'd see uncut Hammer films. You'd see The Outer Limits played all the time. You'd see the old Flash Gordon series. You'd just see wacko stuff all the time. And then they would run old movies because they couldn't get any. But they're all the movies now that TCM runs.
Right.
So there was a lot of this going on. And it had a great, authentic fan culture here.
Yeah, wasn't Chris Silver out there too? Wasn't that where? Oh yeah. So Silver Wolf is huge for the fan stuff.
Fan culture here, and you got the Bay Cons and the Space Cons going on that were pure comics goodness. You know, and that was so. And we had because it's college town, sort of. Tons of used bookstores. So I used to just hit the used bookstores all the time. That's where I got most of my comic collection when I was a kid.
And you still have a huge collection, right?
I never let it go.
Oh, awesome.
Oh yeah. So there was this kind of a wonderful melting pot of good stuff. And from there, I think that's where all these people came from. I mean, I knew Sam. We were both in high school when we met through a mutual friend. And
did you guys draw together when you were younger?
A little bit, but he was at a different place. It was later on. He would come over to my place I used to have, and we'd work in my kitchen. We'd get our drawing boards out and just bullshit and order pizza. And he was doing he was doing Wolverine. I was doing Deadman. I remember. I went on and I was, we had always wanted to do Swamp Thing together. It was something we always talked about was, wouldn't it be cool if we just sit down, they send us a script and we just trade it back and forth? Because that was how we used to work.
Right. And you guys were intertwined into the Sandman years where, Sam left the book, you came on.
Yeah, he had done it and then he left after 5.
Yeah.
And then about a year later or so, he had said, "Hey, I hear they're talking about you doing that," and I hadn't known that. And I said,
"Oh wow!"
I said, "I have no idea." I had just gotten there. I'd done Deadman and a Swamp Thing, and so DC was trying to find me something, and so to keep me there because they were afraid I was going to go somewhere else. They had no fear. I loved DC. I wasn't. I grew up a Marvel guy, but I turned up at DC. So
yeah.
And so at that point, when they called, they said, "Well, we'll give you one to do." And then I called Sam and I said, "You were right. They did." And he says, "Well, I knew they wanted to keep you." And he, oddly enough, was transitioning over to Marvel.
Yeah.
So and we both kind of really hit at that time. I mean,
yes.
And that was surprising to both of us because we were both, like I said, way outside the orbit of normal regular comics, and people were going for it. But those were fun days. That was really exciting. you know.
Do you think that maybe the reason why you hit at DC is because, and not to say that you guys followed Wrightson, but in the wake of his impact on and Kaluta and what they were doing, do you think that's why that
Well, I
maybe it
think
was
for
such a
me,
hit?
I think we talked about it a little bit at the time, not too much, but as time went on, I realized, I mean, not long after, during it, I realized, well, I'd look at comics and they were kind of homogenistic
Mm-hmm.
anyway. And there was no horror other than Swamp Thing book. There was no
Right.
horror. So since I took horror very seriously and worked out my own tropes rather than followed standard comic book stuff, I started getting the interest of the people there saying
Mm-hmm.
they like this. And I remember one editor calling me saying that they were having trouble with production over me because the production people would stop what they were doing and look at it rather than just Xerox print,
Yeah.
color guides, do that. Go down there and haul ass because these guys were sitting down and reading these when they would come in finished, and they said that's a good sign. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
they're doing that, that means maybe fans will do that. I never went after, I was never going to get the X-Men thing, and
Sure.
I never was going to get that kind of whatever but I wasn't going for that. I wanted to be stereotyped as a horror guy.
Yeah.
And I look at my career and I go, I even took Batman, and I will say I took Batman and did him more film noir with a tinge of horror, but I never handled a superhero really.
No.
And that was something that I didn't intend, but I was, that was fine because I knew there were people who I knew the people who would like what I would do don't leave comics. They'll keep looking for that. They'll keep following that. And if there's a thing with Dracula I like, is those are the same people. It doesn't go away. They're looking for something different in that format. And so I figured, okay, I'll satisfy that, and it satisfies me. And
you're a fan.
Yeah, and I think over time, I think a lot of careers are like 5-10 years, and then that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And so a few will hang on. I've been stunned I'm around this long, but I keep following this, and that genre is still, I do it very anachronistically. I reject all technology, not because I'm against it, but because I haven't found one that keeps me as close to the making of a comic as physically doing it. If I could, fine, but I haven't found that yet. I haven't found that where I can make mistakes and they turn out to be glorious.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess what you're also saying maybe is it's a sensory thing. It's like you enjoy.
I don't want to know sometimes. I have an idea what I want. I don't want to know until it's there what's going to happen, because then your inspiration, your energy is all working it.
Yeah.
I always apologize to writer. I always apologize to Matt that my pencils are not to write home about, but they're set up for the inking, which is what I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, I like to draw with the brush. I like to do all this stuff. So I'm not getting out of something. I'm not interested in doing it twice and been locked in because I've detailed everything. I always feel like the hardest thing to do is get that energy across to the reader through all the processes of printing. And the only way to do it is to be dangerous when you're inking and just see what happens.
Wow. Your finished pages are absolutely glorious. And you're pretty vocal about that. You don't sell your artwork. Has that pretty much been across the board since you started, or was there a point where you were just like, I don't want to sell it anymore?
It didn't start. It started at first. I didn't care. I did a little bit, but I was producing so much that they would send it back, and to go through it all would take time. And then I'd found a couple of times that it was helpful having it to say, how did I do this? Because I work that way. How did that happen? So I could kind of retrace steps. And then I just had these bins, and I'd stick them in bins, and after a while you forget, and then you have kids, and then you have life, and
Yeah.
the stuff, and then you forget. And then I never thought that there would be people who were actively want to own it.
Oh yeah.
I'm again, that was the fan part of me, not the pro part. But as it's turned out, I've been lucky that I did hang on to it, because they're able to, even now, they want the originals to publish in these things, and I'll just leave it to my wife and kids. I mean, it's just a god awful amount,
Oh man, that must be amazing. I'd love to see some of it
I would
one
have
day.
to, some of these even now, even though you don't send the books or the pages out, I
Right.
just have these big plastic bins, and I just, when I'm done, I shove them in, and when it's full, I take it and stick it into the storage room, and then I go and there are full of these things. A few times I've went through, and it's interesting. It's like archaeology. You go down through the ages.
Yeah.
And
Going back in time.
jobs that I forgot about, that once I see them, I remember. I go, oh, I forgot about that, and I can see experimentation going on, and I can see all those kind of things. So it is, I think that's different than if you just looked at published work.
Sure.
Certainly more power to someone who can sell it and make. I know there's a lot of artists gripping over that they sold something and
Yeah.
it's worth a lot, but you can't do that to yourself. Nobody knows.
No.
And
There's no way to know what's going to happen in the future.
and you're selling them in good faith for the best you can get to support yourself. That's all honorable. And now you know that you mattered.
Right. I mean, I started collecting and I got into it, and I get, I own pages from people that I never thought I would even see the original artwork. Here, I'm gonna show you something that'll appreciate. I recently picked up one of Bernie's Spider-Man hooky pages.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and it's like I get to own a page from this book that and it's just it's a treat.
It's like you get to touch the hem of a god, it's like, it is. And it refires that glory. I was at a function. It was like a little private lunch thing. And Steve Englehart came, and he had tons of the pages that was gifted to him from artists. Mm-hmm. So he had Neil Adams stuff, and he had glorious Marshall Rogers Batman pages.
Wow.
But he had tons of these things he'd worked on with other people, and we were just loving these things. And what I loved about Steve is he didn't have them all. They were just here. They are out of his satchel, because, and but it was glorious. And I was like a kid. And he's funny because he says, "Yeah, but you do this. Why are you doing?" I said, "No, I grew up reading these, man."
Right.
So 15-year-old Kelley is just going bonkers, I don't even see the nuts and bolts. I'm just looking at it going, this is glorious.
It's a special feeling.
Oh, it is.
An absolute special feeling.
Another sad part is a lot of guys work digitally. They have no original art when they're done.
Yeah, it is a bummer.
And that's becoming the majority.
It is. I mean, there are guys who are younger. Daniel Warren Johnson's one of the guys that I think of. Like, everything he does is completely traditional.
Yeah.
And he's made a lot of people happy, and he's supported his family with the sales of that art.
Yes, you can. And that is noble. And I didn't do it out of, I'm going to keep it all. It, like I said, evolved, and then life caught up, and I was and didn't really need it financially to do it that time. Early on, probably, if there's stuff out there. But I didn't get to the point to think, I'm making masterpieces, so I can't let them go. A lot of it was, I'm not going to remember how I work backwards a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like painting rather than drawing. So I can't remember, but if I see it, then I know how I did something. And that started to be part of it too. But I, for the most part, 99% of the time, I just shoved it in a bin and moved on. It was too much time. Doing monthly books, you don't have time.
Right. And you weren't you don't do a ton of conventions. It's not always been your thing.
Because for me, since you do horror, everything comes out in fall. So you have to work in the summer to make sure they hit their publishing dates. Every time. Even now they go, well, it's going to be October. It comes out, we promote it, and And I'm like screwed. I'm like, well, that's the end of that, you know?
Yeah. The last question about the art I'll ask.
Okay.
Does most of the Batman Dracula stuff, is it still in your possession, or did
Oh,
you,
oh,
was that,
all of the stuff that was my allotment, I have,
wow,
you know?
man,
So 2/3 of all of those, I
that's a lot of pages.
yeah,
That's a lot
and
of
it is a
gore.
lot of pages, but it made DC happy because they want to do something with it, and they said,
Yes.
"Do you by chance have anything from that?" And I said, "I have all my
Awesome.
allotment." And so they said, "Well,
Wow.
could you pick what you like?" And I go, "That's going to be a while because now I have to go through, a couple hundred pages and
Yeah.
look at it, and I have not looked at it since I got the stuff back. So this is going to be a deep dive for me." So
That's awesome.
I told the reprints people, I said, "You're going to have to give me some time on that because one, there's a lot, and two,
Yeah.
I'm going to be traveling back in time, you know."
Yes. And you're also working on a different version of Dracula now. So that's like, you got to keep those two things a little separate, I
You
imagine.
do, and like for me, I've been very very happy that you know one hasn't really crossed into the other. The Batman
Hmm.
Dracula is its thing,
Yes.
and Matt's version is so his that they differentiate, and that he's doing traditional Dracula is good.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, so they have a life of their own. You're right. I mean, at my point in my career, to have people say what they are about this book does not happen. I am grateful, but a lot of it is
Yeah.
because I've got the energy. It's exciting to me just to work on it.
It, I mean, it comes back to the fan thing. I think about musicians that don't like going to live shows because they're kind of tired of it. I'm like, but how could you get tired of this thing that you love doing so much?
They don't get away from it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have
I
to get
think
away
that's,
from it when you're not doing it. When I'm not doing this, I only draw in my studio. I
hmm,
never draw outside of it. I don't even think about art and comics I mean, comics I do, but
sure.
I don't think about this. And then I go live a normal life. My kids didn't even know I drew comics till they were like 12 or 13.
Oh,
No, I was dad, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
So they didn't know, and it wasn't like I kept it a secret. I just never talked about it.
Right.
So one day when they said, "Dad, take us to a baseball game," I said, "I can't. I gotta." My boss, blah blah blah, and my oldest son just goes, "You got a job? What do you do?" And I was thinking, "What? How do you not know?" I said, "I draw." They thought I just like to draw and watch movies all day in that one room,
Hmm.
and they probably were telling everyone my poor wife had a load up, and she's got to deal with this load who doesn't do it.
Yeah. Just
But
watches and draws.
yeah, that's how it is. And she's a civilian, so normal life is normal life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, and uh, and really only of late she started appreciating comics and then romance comics. When COVID was around, she was organizing mine for something to do, and I had like 3 or 4 romance books, but they were from the artists I liked, a certain artist.
Yeah.
I think it was Win Mortimer and a Steranko one and some John Buscema. And she read them. She really liked them. That started her on collecting for herself those kind of comics.
She got into Corbin too, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
heard you talk
oh
about
yeah.
that.
She loved Corbin, and it
Wow.
was because I had now she knows this stuff. I was watching the old heavy metal movie, and I said, well,
Hmm.
these are based on a great series of stories, which I don't think girls would appreciate now. The old den.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had it, and she goes, "Oh, I want to read it," and I gave it to her, and she thought it was genius. She became a huge Richard Corbin fan and bought everything, and really, was sad because I said, "Well, he had passed away," and
Yeah.
but she goes, "Did you ever meet?" I said, "I met him a few times. He was a great guy. He's a very, very nice man." Um, and so she became very big on that, very big on, of all people, Milo Manara. She just
Yeah. Okay.
went to Italy to a thing so she could shake
Oh,
his hand.
wow.
Yeah. But she became very much into those, like and the romance books. I mean, my God, she has tons of those things now. But that's over the course of like what 5 or 6 years of doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what she got into, and but prior to that, it's just what her
Couldn't care
husband.
less.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
she enjoyed when I'd take her to I never went. I would not as a guest, but I would go to shows and like Star Trek shows and all that.
Yeah.
And I'd take her along, and those she had fun with because she'd see 14-year-old Kelley. Um, and I think it's cute for girls to always see that. It's like,
Yeah.
because then they would see me just going off and
See you in your natural habitat.
Yes, I said this is the guy. And then when he was 14, you're seeing him. It's all gone. And so she'd always say, "Well, why don't you go as a guest?" I said, "I don't want to go as a guest. I want to go as a fan and do the thing and stand in the line and go through the stuff and say thank you and whatever." It's more fun. A lot more
fun. Keeps those things separate. Like you said, it's like you get outside and you do your thing, you enjoy the thing, and it keeps you from hating the thing. It also makes me
appreciate when I am a guest, when people come, I get it.
And that makes sense.
I'll have time for anyone. I will talk, I will do, I am fine because I know that. It's not just being polite. I get it, that energy. And I'm shocked anyone would have it for me. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, Kelley, thank you so much for doing this. We're going to pretend that this is over. And if you haven't watched my interview with Matt and Kelley that happened yesterday, well, you can do that now. All right, Kelley, we'll do this again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to Kelley for his time. Thank you to Matt and Kelley for their time just in general. I suspect we will be hearing from both of them again once the 4th Dracula book is ready. I am happy to promote and have conversations with these guys. It just gets better and better. There is a nice little chunk of content that I've created with both of them on West Coast Avengers. There's going to be a playlist you can check out. I did an interview with Matt, 2 interviews with Matt, one with Kelley and Matt, top 10 or top 5 horror movies with them, and then the interview that dropped yesterday. So if you are interested in both of them, please go over and check out all of the stuff that I've put on the channel with the 2 of them. Don't forget the Kickstarter link is in the description below. And for my part, 2 things I'm going to ask of you. If you're new here, please subscribe. If you are also new here, subscribe and rate the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it or watching it on. Hit the like button, drop a comment down below. Any interaction with you, my viewer and listener, helps grow this podcast. Listening to it to the end also tells other new YouTube subscribers, hey, come along. I have a Patreon. $5 a month gets you at least one West Coast Avengers video, one exclusive direct edition episode, a private sale every 2 months. You get to vote on a video that I'm going to create, and I'm just putting a ton of stuff on there that's exclusive to the Patreon. It helps me keep the lights on here and pay for editing and just kind of that kind of maintenance stuff. $5 a month. It's less than a cup of coffee. So link is in the description below. Please click over and subscribe. And we're getting towards the end of the season here, but a couple more things that I will be posting on here, some great interviews and a couple of other special surprises on the podcast before the season ends. This has been Direct Edition. I'm your host, Dave. Stay safe this Halloween, watch a bunch of spooky movies, and I'll see you next week, you ghouls. Hello, friends. It's your pal Dave, and I want to introduce to you my brand new Patreon, West Coast Avengers and Direct Edition, all under one umbrella. You can now support me by joining the Patreon for $5 a month, and what you're going to get is me wearing this shirt and nothing else. I'm just kidding. You're going to get at least one bonus episode of West Coast Avengers and one bonus episode of Direct Edition per month. As well, I'm going to let you vote on the content of another West Coast Avengers video where I flip through a rare book or a rare magazine or something that you've never seen before, and you get to and you get to participate in what book it is. As well, every 2 months, I'm going to do a private sale right here, Patreon exclusive, and you're going to have first access to buying it well before it goes live on West Coast Wednesday of my comic book claim sale. So that's a little exclusivity for you. So plop down $5 a month. It's not that much to ask, is it? I'm waiting. No, it's not. For $5 a month, you can help support and grow this community while we do some great things together. West Coast Avengers and Direct Edition. Fucking hell, let me do that one more part over again. Yeah, that's right.